Hi, welcome to another book review. Today we're going to be talking about Mao's America. This is a really interesting book written by a Chinese lady that lived in China under Mao's uh, communism and saw how communism took over China. She was a communist herself, and at the age of 26, 27, she woke up, moved to America, and lived the American dream. And then at a certain point, she started to realize that the patterns that had led China into communism were happening in America. And so she started to speak up. She then wrote this book. She was then on Tucker Carlson's show, which is how I found out about her. And she tells the story and she shows the pattern. And we see the same pattern is been actioned over here in Europe. I mean, the communist takeovers happened already in most of Europe and also in the UK. And now, it's also happening in America. Now, what is this pattern that C. Van Fleet talks about in her book, Mao's America? It's DEI, this philosophy of, if you have to hire 10 people in your company, you need to hire so many of this ethnic origin, so many of the other ethnic origin, so many gay, so many straight, whatever. And you can't sort of go out there and say, I need to hire 10 people. I'm going to pick the 10 best candidates. So that's one thing. Attack on Christianity, we're seeing that happened here in Europe. Attack on free speech. You're not allowed to express your opinion anymore. If your opinion goes against the government, then they come and knock on your door and lock you up. We've had that happen to numerous people here in the UK. What else is happening? Attack on family. We see in China where for many years couples were only allowed to have one child. Now that policy has changed to two children, but people aren't free to have as many children as they want. We've seen the same thing happen in Europe where there's like 1.8 children per couple. So white Europeans aren't having children anymore. We've seen this mass migration happen. The demographics and the color of the average European is changing. There's been a big takeover that's happened here in Europe already, and she could see the same thing happening over in America. And so, free speech and family, less people getting married these days, people having less children. That's another worry for America. And Charlie Kirk, with his movement with Turning Point USA, he noticed what was happening, and he started to go out there, and he realized that a lot of what was happening, and this is what Mrs. Van Fleet talks about in her book. She said a lot of the indoctrination happens at school level, so they get the kids while they're young, and their minds are open, and they put this ideology into them, and they, the teachers are trained in a certain way. They go out there, and and it's happened here in the UK. Most teachers that I know are lean left, and a lot of kids that go to school, friends of mine that are Christians, struggling with their kids because their kids have got this communist mentality. They don't believe in God. They don't believe in getting married and family and that. And this is how society ends up going down a path which is not good. We just have to look at history, Roman Empire being one of them, downfall of the Roman Empire, the Greek Empire. The reasons are always the same, and the pattern that she lays out in Mao's America. And she says, we've got to be careful, because this is happening in America right now. They took Charlie Kirk out because he was waking the young people up. He was waking them up. He's saying, hey, look, it's time to go out there, get married, have children, have faith, pray, include God in your life. This is the core message that Charlie Kirk was sharing with young people, and young people were debating him on different issues, from gun control to abortion to marriage, different number of subjects. You can watch those debates online, and they took him out. They took him out because the people that are the architects behind turning America into a communist regime, they don't want people to pray. They don't want people to believe in God. They don't want people to get married and have children and have normal family units, which are made up of a man and a woman and children. Now you've got all these other different. In Canada, for example, there are 72 different genders. That's interesting. So and this is what's happened in China, and it's happening in America. I think the takeover in Britain and in Europe is happened. So there's nothing we can do. We either live with it or we leave. But America, I think there's still hope. And so, whether you're leaning left or right politically in that, I think this is a really good read because it's written by a lady that lived in China, saw this happen to her own country, moved to America, and sees the same pattern happening. And when she talks about the pattern, and then you look around, you say, she's actually right. These are facts. This is actually really happening. It's not an opinion. It's a fact. And that really does open your eyes to what's happening in the world and what you can do to make a change. We can change the world one person at a time. It starts with ourselves, being an example, and then hopefully to those around us. And that's the way we can do it. So I really, enjoyed this read. Eye-opener. Scary to some extent, but certainly something I encourage everybody to read. And that's all from Fabrizio Poli here on this book review, and I'll see you in the next one.